Does anyone remember that scene in The Matrix when Neo enters the dojo? We are about to enter that moment.
The Apple Vision Pro is a supremely well-engineered device that represents the unholy union of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and augmented reality, and takes Apple's version and worldview into that device. Now, instead of having a metaverse full of its gimmicks and office and avatars, we have a completely different version than's been presented to us of how these technologies should marry together in a device that blasts pictures directly to your retinas. Let's first talk about the technology of this device. It has 12 cameras, 5 sensors, 6 microphones. It has a screen for each of your eyes that has 4K resolution in a pixel density magnitudes higher than that found on your iPhone. It has sensors built to track your eyes so that when you look at a particular portion of a scene, increases the rendering of that portion of the screen so that you're seeing it in an even greater resolution. It has a screen on the front to reflect your face if you so choose, so that you can be seen as being present in an environment. It has awesome computing power. Not only does it have an M2 chip, it has a specific new chip designed for the Apple Vision Pro that is designed to process the huge amount of imaging data that comes in. It has spatial audio, and it has a brand new interface, one controlled by gestures without the need for peripherals, and also by eye movements that interact with the aspects on the screen, with the apps on the screen, and with the windows on the screen, which are presented to you in 3D and superimposed over the scene in which you're in. For example, your living room or your office workspace. In essence though, it looks like a super cool pair of ski goggles with some touches and tweaks that make it different to the VR headsets we've seen come before. Let's talk about some of the key features that Apple envisions how this device will be used. Let's start with the basics. You could use it as a huge cinema screen. It will display in huge sizes a movie or a program, and you can wrap that image around your workspace. You can isolate yourself from the space that you're in and choose the scene in which that movie is displayed to you, or you can have it partially showing where you are. That's the most basic thing it can do. It can act like a virtual environment for your workspace, so you can have meetings and share presentations and share notes and work on them collaboratively. It is a super cool FaceTime camera and FaceTime meeting facilitator, because you can have your people who are on a call in different areas of the window within the space that you're using the headset. You can use apps with it. You can use the apps that we're used to, Safari, which has its own unique way of presenting itself. You can use it to have work from your computer handed over to its screen and have it visualized in 4K resolution just by looking at it. For example, you look at your Mac, that Mac will automatically connect to the Apple Vision Pro, and your workspace from the Mac will be in your vision, but also at the same time take 3D photos and relive them and replay them in 3D, because of course you're getting an image to each eye, which is a basic requirement for 3D imaging. You can use it for mindfulness. It's going to have scenes in which you can zone out of the world and be shown and projected images that should be conducive to meditation. But these are some of the basic things that Apple presents. And then when developers start expanding its capabilities, we will see a huge amount more of uses for it. This device is designed to be tethered, because on battery it will only last 2 hours, which is not a huge amount of time. Some movies you won't be able to get through, and Apple promote this as something that you could sit there on a plane and cocoon yourself in your own virtual environment. But really, for 2 hours, most flights are much longer than 2 hours, so you will need to have some kind of power going to the device. Whether you find that on a plane, difficult to say. Some planes have the power, some won't. But that's a practicality, and I'm sure that will be addressed in future itineration. But let's talk about why there weren't many overt references to AI, to AR, to VR. I'll tell you why. The metaverse has been associated with so much stigma, both from its creator and their reputation, but also from the corniness, the cheesiness of having an avatar in a workspace, in an office. And Apple have decided to dissociate themselves from that particular path and instead created a kind of augmented world that's your own. Let me explain. Remember, the goggles are opaque. There's cameras. They take the picture of the outside world and they project to you back that version interpreted by Apple Silicon onto the screen. It's a created reality, an Apple created reality. Of course, buried deeply within it is going to be AI and machine learning algorithms that are going to process and project what you see. But remember, you are looking at a created image. You're not looking through glass, although that's what Apple want you to believe and see through their demonstrations and their keynote. One of the criticisms of traditional VR headsets has been the isolation of the user from the rest of the world. Apple have attempted to address this, and this is one of the main reasons they have a big screen on the front of the goggles. One, that should you choose and dial in or dial out, you can project to the outside world that you are there. The device is so advanced in how it does this and super creepy as well. It constructs the picture of your eyes and projects it onto the screen, onto the outer facing screen. So the real world see a version of your eyes. Which brings me on to something that the FaceTime does. If you were in a room and you're wearing the goggles, an outside observer would see you wearing the goggles. Of course, maybe they'd see your eyes if you choose it to be that way. But to the person to whom you're on a FaceTime call, they would see your face. But it wouldn't be a real face. It would be the face that the goggles have constructed using lidar sensors in your iPhone, lidar sensors in the goggles, and camera images. And they reconstruct and project the artificial image of your face to the person who's on the other end of the FaceTime call. It's fascinating, but has profound implications. I'm going to come to that. One of the things that I find fascinating is the years in making that this device has been, and suddenly, although we've speculated, things make so much sense. For example, why Apple would incorporate LiDAR sensors into an iPad or into the iPhone. Such an expensive, advanced technology for such a simple use such as Face ID doesn't make complete sense. But when you think that it was probably feeding into their research into how they can construct some of the elements needed for the Apple Vision Pro, then you start to understand that it was research that was used to feed into their designs and iterations of the Apple Vision Pro glasses. So one of the more scary and thought-provoking aspects of what Apple are doing here is the thing that I called the Apple constructed reality. These days, when you take a selfie on the iPhone, your skin looks much better than it does in real life. That's machine learning. That's AI having its role in processing the image. It's very different to a photograph taken on film, very different to a traditional iPhone version 1 photo. It's not fully reflective of reality. And that is what's fascinating, because suddenly the world you see through the Apple Vision Pro is going to have elements incorporated within it. It will tint the world that you see based on what it wants you to see, what the developer wants you to see, what the programmer wants you to see, what the algorithm has decided you're going to see, and what Apple have decided you're going to see. Now you can imagine when there's mass adoption of this device, which there will be, hundreds of people wearing the goggles, they will be seeing a version of the other person who's wearing a goggle that that person wants them to see, or Apple and the algorithms want them to see, or the developer wants them to see. In reality, there'll be a load of people walking around with goggles on their head. Take from that what you will, but that has huge implications. You could be walking around a building site and the version of reality that Apple creates could be that it's a beautiful park. Is that the way we want to be seeing our real world? It soon will be. And do we have choices in that? Partially no, because we are adopting technology that big corporations have produced for us without really consultation with us in their belief is what's best for us. Think of this as Apple Vision Pro as the iPhone 1. Advanced tech, but basic in its functionality. The use and applications of this are going to advance profoundly over the next 3 to 5 years. We do not know the potential, but we can speculate. And they are all inspiring, from education to so many other fields. One of the concerning factors is the sense of isolation. Now, Apple, of course, appreciate this because they've tried to build in a way of communicating the user's emotion and expression to the outside world by depicting their eyes to the outside world. But really, it's a false reality. And is that the way we want to be projecting ourselves to the world? A pair of eyes screaming through a pair of goggles? It's a difficult one. Are we going to let the world and how it's viewed be directed by big tech corporations? This is an Apple created version of reality. You're looking at the world through the picture produced on these super high resolution screens that's designed to look as real as possible. Is that the need for physical devices becomes much less. Why would it make sense for you to pick up an actual iPhone and the machine to generate an image of the iPhone and the apps on the iPhone when all of that could be done virtually? Will we be buying virtual iPhones? I think so. It would make so much sense if you're going around all day with your Apple Vision Pro on. Why would you then carry around a phone? It would actually make so much more sense to have that device as a software option. Just like when you're using the Apple Watch, you will not really need to be looking at your actual Apple Watch on your wrist when you're using the Apple Vision Pro, because the Apple Vision Pro would have to take a picture of that watch, construct it, and depict it on the screen so that you can view it. Why is that necessary? The Apple Vision Pro could itself, via software, make it seem as if you're wearing a watch.